Hey guys, and welcome to the first episode of Hare and Tortoise. You are joined by myself, Harry Lancaster, also known as Running to Eat More, and Lee Bradbury, also known as the Intrepid Athlete. We both love running, we both into conditioning, and we just thought this would be a great way to kind of give ourselves kind of a longer format to talk about running related topics, but also strength conditioning, mobility, nutrition, and that kind of thing. So yeah, my name's Harry, and Lee has joined me very nicely today. Would you like to introduce yourself, Lee? Say a few things.
As Harry said there, my name's Lee. I've been running probably since I was about 6 or 7 years old. Started off on road, 10k distance, steeplechase, building up to kind of more ultra distance and fell running. I'm a strength and conditioning coach and a run coach. So obviously my specialty is working with endurance athletes to help prevent injuries, get stronger, and therefore improve their run performance. That'll do for now because we're going to talk about some of the races and stuff like that. So I won't delve too deep into that for now. What about yourself?
Yeah, so obviously I don't have the experience Lee offers, but I do love running. I mainly take part in kind of 5K races at the minute. I'm trying to take my 5K PB down from 16:27, but I have done a half marathon, I have done a marathon, quite a few half marathons to be fair. But yeah, mainly 5Ks for now. I also love other sports like tennis, boxing, that kind of thing. And I'm really trying to work on kind of strength conditioning as well, especially under lockdown. A lot of virtual classes online. That's been very useful for myself. But yeah, we thought we'd jump into the first topic, which is obviously quite a relevant one, just about how we've had to adapt under lockdown. Obviously, everyone, whoever you are, has had to make some kind of adaptation to lockdown, whether it's, just decrease time you've been running or, implementing more strength conditioning or less or whatever it's been. So we thought we'd just give our kind of, experience of how we've adapted. So Lee, would you like to start with kind of your change?
Yeah. So you just made me laugh then when you're talking about how people have adapted to lockdown, and I can just imagine some people who can turn around and say after 3 months they have done nothing.
Yeah, I know.
And just enjoyed takeaways and deliveries wherever they can get them.
Which is fine as well. You can enjoy yourself as well, right?
So I think the biggest thing I had to adapt was my terrain. So, like I said before, for the last 2 or 3 years, I've been pretty much exclusively running on the fells and trail. Not touched road running probably for about 6 years now. Because even in between, before I started on the fells, I wasn't running as much because I was focusing on some other goals in strength work and stuff like that, and competing in some Olympic weightlifting. But so for me, obviously having to run from your door during the initial stages of lockdown and only once per day meant that for me, the only access I had to running routes was all on road. So I massively had to adapt the terrain I was running on and going exclusively to road, which was obviously a different stimulus to the body. But to be fair, it actually ignited a bit of a love again for some road running. Because the reason I sort of went away from it is because I was a bit bored of it. And obviously I enjoyed the challenge of the fells. So it was really good to actually enjoy running on the roads and also just to have a bit more of a runnable route. Because obviously, unless you're a sort of elite athlete, when it comes to fells, there is a lot of walking in there when it comes to going up the mountains and things like that. So it was good to actually go back to some routes where you can run the whole thing, including the hills and the inclines and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I think that's the biggest change that I've made so far.
Would you say you've kind of increased the speed and intensity and like brought down the mileage, or is the mileage stayed pretty similar?
Yeah, I mean, mileage has definitely come down a little bit, but that's just more probably because obviously initially we didn't have any events that were going to happen anytime soon. Yeah. So I'm not one for kind of keeping the high levels of mileage week in, week out. So yeah, so my mileage probably dropped to between 20 and 30 per week. So not a huge amount. But I was, and I still am training 4 or 5 days in the gym as well. So that kind of makes up for it. I would say the intensity definitely changed, and it was really good, like you said there as well, to add some more speed work in, which I've not really done for a long time. So doing some hill sprints, because we had a nice little incline down the road, to do some either short sort of 10-15 second sprints, or you could extend the hill even further and do some sort of 30 to 60 second intervals. And then yeah, it was good to start running, below sort of 8-9 minute miles, because I've not done that for a long time. So hitting some, sort of 6:30, 6:45 averages on a 4 to 5 mile route was something that I've not done for a long time.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
but it was good to see that I could still call upon that if I needed to, because again, I didn't think I'd be able to, and that was only after a short couple of weeks of just getting back into training.
Because obviously over the last well, I don't know how many years exactly, but you've mainly focused on kind of ultra running, longer distances. So
Yeah.
obviously, like, generally the times are going to be slower because it's a long distance.
Oh,
So
definitely.
I guess it's reassuring to know if you're doing a step down to, 5Ks, 10Ks or whatever, you can give it a go. Do you think if you did, do you think you would kind of, and really pushed again for those kind of fast times, do you think you could get close to your kind of previous PBs in the past or not?
I don't know, to be honest. I'd like to think I could. But for example, so my mile and a half time when I was in the army was my best was 7:42. So
Okay.
that works out at what, sort of just under 5 minutes for the first mile. Um, and yeah, I don't think I could even just run that fresh a sub 5 mile. Do you know what I mean? So,
Yeah, yeah.
but to be fair, I did a park run last year, which obviously is a 5K. Now the route wasn't the flattest, but again, there wasn't any hills in it by any stretch. It was a couple
Which
of
one was that?
inclines. The Keswick one.
All right. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But obviously, at the moment, because of all the construction work, it's kind of like an out and back along the old railway road.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so there's like a little bit of an incline on the way back in over the bridge. But yeah, so like I said, my best was probably just under 19 minutes. So I'm not super fast at the 5K distance anyway, not compared to you.
Well, it's
um,
still a great time though.
yeah, I
Anything
mean,
under 20 is a quality time, really.
yeah, but then, like I said, I did do that 5K, and granted, I hadn't done any speed work or specific training for it, and I still busted out a 20:29. So it wasn't too far off, a couple of minutes, but that was out any dedicated training. So I'd like to think, yeah, if I put maybe a good solid 3 months of some specific sprints and stuff like, because again, I've not done any 100 meter, 200 meter intervals or anything like that. 800 meter intervals, I've not done them for yonks. Like I said, the problem is even all that stuff is still great for an ultra runner. You just kind of get sapped into just doing
Yeah.
steady runs throughout your whole training regimen, just because you enjoy getting out on the hills, and it doesn't really lend itself to sort of tempo work or interval work.
No,
But yeah,
no, I totally get that because even though I'm training for 5K, 10K or halves, over the last few years, I've I've barely implemented like any interval sessions or any speed work. It's a lot of the time it's just me heading out for like a 10 miler or 10K kind of training run, just because I like the kind of, it's fairly kind of easy, laid back, and you can put your music in. If you have to do like the speed work, which I'll go on to in a bit about what I've been doing in lockdown, it's obviously more intense. Like if you're
yeah.
doing 10 by 200, that's literally you going like full out of breath.
Oh
Like
yeah, it's uncomfortable, isn't it?
it's not. No, I've enjoyed it though. To be fair, like as I said, under lockdown, I have kind of changed my approach and added a bit more structure with a coach as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is a lot more intense, a lot more painful. It's shorter as well. Like, I'm not out there for as long as well, which is good, I guess.
Well, yeah, I
For
mean, for a 5K, it's not like you need to be running sort of regular 10, 12, 15 milers.
Yeah, although they do say 5K is still like aerobic, so you still need to get like your good mileage in, but to get that speed, well, I guess you need a combination of both, really.
Yeah.
But I've just neglected the speed in the past, I guess. So yeah, it's been quite
Which
refreshing.
begs the question of what you can achieve. And if you're already getting a 16, 20 odd
Well,
without any real dedicated speed work, you could absolutely smash a sub 16.
I mean, you never know. We'll have to see. I'd like to think so, but I don't know. A lot of it could be. I don't know how it works. Maybe genetic. Maybe you just genetically have more speed than others. But it's quite fun as you said because I don't know how far I can take the 5K because I've not done speed work, as you said. So we'll just have to see. Hopefully, I won't get injured, but you never know. You never know.
Still got youth on your side at least.
Well, yeah. Just finished uni now. For those of you that don't know, basically uni was cancelled in the last year, so I was quite happy with that. Got out of exams, didn't have to do any of that. So yeah,
Have they just handed you your qualification then, or have you got to do them?
pretty much, yeah, pretty much. We got our results last week, and yeah, it was a bit of a relief really because we were meant to have this whole like exam period, obviously, revision, everything like that, and then suddenly you don't have to do any of that. We're just going to like double your coursework grade and give you your final degree. So I was happy with that. No complaints from me. So yeah.
Nice. So what would you say then you've adapted the most during lockdown in terms of your training overall?
Weirdly, like if I was say lockdown had happened a year ago, my mindset probably would have been I'm going to put in as many miles as I can because I've got so much time, like literally so much time, especially as a student. But as I said, because I've been trying to add a bit more structure, a bit more routine, and I've got a coach basically telling me what to do each and every day, the sessions are really, really short, and the mileage is comparatively short to what I was doing as well. So instead of doing like 80, 90, 100 kilometer weeks at times, it's more like 40, 50, 60, but with lots of speed work. So yeah, still the odd kind of 10K run, but it's mainly like just reps, like high intense work. So yeah, I'd say the main adaptation for me has been just adding more speed work. But with nutrition, again, with having so much time, you can kind of approach nutrition in two ways. Some people have kind of given it as a chance to kind of have whatever they want and just treat themselves every day. You might be one of them, which you can't blame them for. Like if you're sitting around all day, you're gonna eat, right?
Yeah.
So, but I've seen it as a chance to kind of really kind of focus on the diet. Trying to lose body fat at the minute, so just trying to stay in that calorie deficit as best I can. But yeah, just healthy food. Still like to treat myself with pizza or whatever when I can. But yeah, really trying to focus on diet. And yes, short, fast work, as I said.
So how have you been finding training being in a calorie deficit in terms of energy and recovery?
It doesn't seem to affect me too much, but it makes me think if I did fuel myself, calorie maintenance or surplus, would I be a lot faster? Because basically what I'll do, I'll try and stay in a deficit for most days. Although I'm not counting exactly, so I don't know exactly if I am, because it's just too much effort. But roughly I know. Before I run, I'll still have like say a breakfast or an energy gel, or whatever, just to give me that energy, and hope that kind of gives me enough to push me through. And it usually does, to be fair. So yeah, I don't know exactly how much I'm in a deficit. Maybe I'm in a massive surplus. Like you just don't know. But
well, I'm sure the scales would tell you if you
yeah. To be fair, you can tell by just looking at your body or whatever in the mirror, certain muscles or whatever you can see that you couldn't see before. But yeah, no, I really enjoy looking at nutrition and that kind of thing. But yeah, energy wise, not really a problem, to be fair. I'm still eating a lot of carbs. Just not as many as I was, I guess. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, like I said, this is the key: is you can still, improve performance in a deficit. You just got to manage that recovery, and obviously, energy is going to be the big dictator of whether or not it's working. And if you're, especially because you just recently did a time trial for your 5K and banged out a great time, that's proof that your deficit isn't hampering your performance.
Yeah, definitely. Have you ever experimented with fasting or intermittent fasting?
I haven't personally. I mean, on the nutritional side, for me personally, I've never really had to worry too much about it. Whether it's again, I'm lucky that I've got a good level of metabolism, or I've lifted weights since I was 16, so I've built a decent level of muscle, which obviously is more metabolically demanding. So I can kind of get away with eating whatever I want.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, over the last couple of years since I hit sort of 30, 31, I have seen that it's not as forgiving, but yeah.
Yeah.
No, so for me, I've just eaten to enjoy food as well as obviously just feel like I've got energy to do whatever I want. And that's kind of, for me, the biggest struggle with food is being able to eat whilst running, which I've only recently kind of just started to get to a point where I can eat food and not have stomach issues, and that's since kind of using like the mountain fuel stuff.
Do you
But
mean
yeah,
when you're out on your kind of long
yeah,
runs
sorry,
and
when
you
I'm
want
out
to
racing
fuel?
or on long runs and stuff. So I've had lots of issues with stomach issues and kind of dry heaving and energy and stuff like that, just because I struggle to eat a lot whilst I'm out, which obviously I need to, especially
Yeah.
on these long, like on the Spine Challenger, the 108 miler one. I was dry heaving probably like every 4 hours, having to take indigestion tablets and all that sort of
Oh.
stuff because my
Where
stomach
was
was
that
just.
one?
So that's uh, starts in I've forgotten that Edale. It
All
starts in
right.
Edale. You run along the Pennine Way up to Hawes if you're doing the baby race like I did,
Mm,
and then the big
baby.
race. Yeah, the big race, the 260 odd miler carries on, obviously going past there.
So,
But yeah, so yeah, I did that 2019. But yeah, so for me, food is just I eat to enjoy food. I
yeah.
eat. Like I said, I eat and I drink. On the whole, like I said, it's in moderation. I'm not. It's not like I eat rubbish food every day. On the whole, it'll be.
Alcoholic every night.
Yeah, but yeah. So in terms of the fasting side of things, I've never experimented with it because, again, typically I train in the mornings in the gym.
Mm,
So I've tried or not tried, but I've gone to the gym sometimes where I've gotten up late and not had breakfast before, and I just don't feel like I can perform. I need a good meal in me before I can do any real intense exercise. So I've
yeah.
never really played with a fast, and that's not to say that it doesn't work, but yeah, no, I've not sort of personally experienced it. At the end of the day, it's just another way of being in a calorie deficit. There's
Yeah.
lots of research out there that people try and say that it's healthier or it's better for performance, and that's just unfounded.
Mm,
Essentially, all it is it's a way for people to maintain a calorie deficit,
that's it.
eating in a window that potentially benefits them more based on their lifestyle and stuff like that. So if it works for you in terms of missing a couple of meals or missing breakfast or whatever, then
Mm,
go for it. Because again, we know that having breakfast in the morning isn't a prerequisite. You don't have to have it. It's
yeah.
the science there to say that you can still perform well, you can still lose weight, etc. You don't have to have breakfast to be able to lose body fat or to perform. It's just based on individual needs. And like for me personally, I have to have breakfast, but I know lots of people that I coach, especially like I said in the sort of the gym classes and that, they will come to the class without any food in them and still perform well.
Yeah.
So
I mean, as you say, there's so much rubbish out there when it comes to nutrition, especially like losing weight. At the end of the day, if you're in a calorie deficit, you are going to lose weight. Like it's pretty simple, really. Whether you fast or whether you do whatever, if you're in a calorie deficit, you'll lose weight.
that's
So,
it. You only have to look at people like James Smith and all that stuff, who's obviously popularized it a lot more now recently, which is quite good to see
mm,
in terms of just focusing on the calorie deficit and forming good relationships with food and not seeing food as good and bad, as it were, or as
yeah,
naughty or anything like that.
yeah, yeah,
Just creates bad habits and creates a bad mentality towards food, which isn't good for a lot of people. So that's for like I said, for me personally, I've just kind of just seen food as it is. I eat it to enjoy it
yeah.
or eat it to help me fuel my activities, and that's it.
Is James Smith that Gordon Ramsay fitness guy? Is that the one you mean?
I don't know if he's been referred to that. Have you not come across him before?
Is he the like real straight talking, like straight to the point?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
he's kind of got like an Aussie accent, but slash
yeah.
English accent because he kind of flirts between the two. And he's just had a book come out which is called Not a Diet Book.
Yeah, yeah, no, I was literally watching a video of his like 10 minutes before
Yeah,
we came on. Yeah,
yeah. So
so,
for me, on the nutrition side of things, if anyone ever asks about it, I just go have a look at his stuff, have a look at his book. Obviously there's tweaks you need to make in terms of performance, but yeah, generally I think in terms of just getting an idea of nutrition from a calorie deficit perspective, it's a good place to start.
definitely, yeah.
Like,
And
you never
I
fast or anything.
well, I was just gonna say, like, I completely agree with you regarding eating what you enjoy and all that. Like, I've gone through times where I have like a pizza a day for like 8 days. Like, I'm lucky that I like kind of love like all food pretty much. Like, I'll eat whatever. Like, steak last night was incredible, absolutely brilliant. But yeah, so like I love all food, but it's just been the last few months Not been strict with it, just tried to kind of have a bit of discipline with it, just to see if it kind of helps performance or anything, which, to be fair, I think it maybe is a little bit, just having a little bit less body fat, especially for like a shorter race format as well. I was gonna. Oh yeah, you asked about fasting. So I have done that in the past for a few. I did it quite a bit, to be fair. I think it was about a year. And yeah, my knowledge on nutrition wasn't as high as it is now. At that time, and I was just kind of doing it because it was kind of popular, and it still has lots of benefits from what I see. But as we said, like if you're in a calorie deficit, no matter when you eat, you are gonna lose weight. So I've kind of changed my approach a little bit in that regard. I was going to ask, as an ultra runner, like experienced with ultra races, is it true that a lot of your diet should be based on fats because it's like slow releasing? Is that?
There's still research into ketosis is still, I think, in its infancy, and also there's so many people now who've jumped on the keto bandwagon that aren't talking about it from an endurance perspective. They're talking about it from a weight loss perspective, which again, as we've just said, means you're in a calorie deficit. If you're eating higher fats, then you're probably not eating as many carbs and stuff like that. So yes, your calories are probably going to be less than what you would normally be eating, and therefore you're in a deficit. But yeah, in terms of, because obviously, like I said, if you can become fat adapted, then that means essentially your body will choose fat as fuel over carbohydrates as a primary source. But like I said, in terms of the science behind it, it's still in its infancy. It's still a hard process to achieve. And I think even then, if you are, you don't necessarily know if you are. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And the thing is as well, you remember that even at sort of marathon distance, yes, it's kind of 97% aerobic and a few percent non-aerobic, but that still means then for that small percentage you are going to need to be able to access glycogen stores and utilize carbohydrates for fuel, especially if you then start wanting to do things like a surge or a kick or anything like that. So I think for me personally, yeah, as an ultra runner, I've gone at steady paces, and I'm generally low body fat anyway. So again, that suggests that potentially I'm using fat as a fuel source, but I've still only really ever felt sufficiently sort of energized as it goes later into the races if I eat carbs. And carbs is obviously one of their primary sources for the brain and things like that as well. So it's not just a case of becoming fat adapted and you can kind of get rid of carbs completely. So plus a lot of the nicest foods are high in carbs anyway. So so I would say, I don't know, I do need to look at it a bit more, to be honest. But for me, this whole fat adapted thing it's been going on for years. We all remember back in the day, it was all about the fat burning zone, wasn't it? Which again has been disproven now as a kind of myth. You can't just run in a specific pace and automatically your body switches gears and only just starts utilizing fat as fuel. It's just not. It's not possible. Like I said, especially because no matter what speed you're running at, there's no one energy system that is predominantly producing energy. Because obviously that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about converting energy. So even if you're running aerobically, you're still utilizing energy production from your other systems, which utilize carbohydrates as their source, or creatine phosphate from the muscles. So yeah, I don't know if I believe it or not. There's probably runners out there that will say I'm fat adapted and that I only use fat as fuel, etc. And there's probably some high level runners out there that are on the keto diet, but just because you're on that diet and performing to a high level, is it the diet or is it just because you're good at training? Your training is really good.
So many variables.
Exactly, that's it. So yeah, me from seeing some of my videos. I'm not kind of like a guy who likes to deal in absolutes, because as we learn more and more and more, we understand that there are no absolutes. It is very individual.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Like everyone's experience is different. Just because fasting works for me, it might not work for someone else. Or I can run well with high fats, doesn't mean someone else can, because simply there's not enough science to kind of back it for every individual. So you can't really say much on it, can you? To be fair,
that's it. And go on, you go. There you go.
I was just going to say, like, it's interesting regarding like just people trying to lose weight or being in a calorie deficit, like there's a big difference between doing that and eating healthy food. Like a lot of people will associate in eating healthy food means you're going to be in a calorie deficit. But the thing is, like foods like nuts or say like avocados, great source of like vitamins and fats and fiber, but they're absolutely packed full of calories. Like
Yeah.
nuts, one of the most calorie dense foods you can get. So like if you eat a bag of like peanuts, that's like I don't know 700-800 calories. Great
Yeah.
for you. Like don't get me wrong. And same with avocados, like 300-400 calories in avocado. So
Yeah.
it's healthy, but if your goal is to lose weight, it's likely going to be harder, depending on what you eat on the rest of the day, to be in that calorie deficit. So yeah, it's just interesting to see the way different people go about it for me.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a good experience of that in terms of because obviously I've been doing CrossFit for quite a while as well. And when CrossFit first started, it was all about the Paleo Diet. So it was, it was focused on high proteins, lots of things like good fats, like peanut butter and avocados and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And then you'd get loads of people following it. And like you said, even though it was healthy-ish food, because they thought they could just eat lots of it. Like you said, they weren't in calorie deficits. They weren't losing the weight they wanted to lose, or they were then focusing on making the treats that were paleo, like paleo brownies, which had all wholesome ingredients in, but it's still a brownie. It's still going to have loads and loads of calories in it. But it's almost like they gave themselves a green light just to eat whatever they want, as much as they want.
I totally get it. Like only a year or two ago, I was exactly the same. Like I'd see like. It might be something as simple as an apple. There'd be a fruit bowl in my house, 10 apples. I'd be like, oh, if I eat all these apples, it's going to help me lose weight. That's the way I was like thinking. Although I wasn't really bothered about weight, but you get my point.
Yeah, of course.
Unless you're educated on these things, like through different, people or journals or sites that are reliable. That's the thing. You've got to be reliable, and you've got to make sure that you are, finding the stuff that you can truly kind of trust, because obviously there's a lot of rubbish out there as well.
Yeah,
which is a shame, because obviously, when people read these things and follow them and they don't see results, it can lead to so many problems, like mental health wise, and obviously physically as well. So it is a big shame, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely, and that's it. The thing is, if someone's trying to kind of point you in the direction of one thing, then that's where your kind of alarm bell should be ringing. Like we said just before, if they're saying that this is the best way to lose weight or the best product to do this, then straight away you should stay clear, because all they're focusing on is taking money. By trying to get you emotionally involved by saying, I was like this, or we've got this person that was like this and they did this and they got amazing results, so this is the way everyone should do it to get the best results. I would stay clear, because like I said, like we just said there, it's very individual. There's key concepts that you need to focus on, like the calorie deficit, and there's lots of people out there like James Smith who are good reputable sources of information. And yes, obviously he's been thrust into the limelight over the last couple of years, but he was doing his stuff well before he became famous and staying to the sort of true to what he's doing now. So yeah, that's the thing for me. And especially celebrities and stuff, if they're peddling something on you or saying that I've done something and it worked, again, you need to take it with a pinch of salt, because just because it's worked for them doesn't mean it's going to work for you. And then you've got to remember, as a celebrity, they've probably got a person that makes all their food for them, they're a nutritionist, a coach where they can then train with a personal trainer regular. Do you know what I mean? So to compare yourself to someone else's lifestyle like that is silly.
It's also like a lot of them get obviously paid advertising. So like Gemma Collins a few weeks ago, there was like outrage about this, because she basically lost a bit of weight, and she was then advertising this like pill that you take and then you lose this weight. And obviously, it's just unfounded. It doesn't work like that.
No.
But because there's young girls or boys looking at her account, they're going to want to do it at the end of the day. So you've really got to kind of trust who you're looking at and understand they're being paid to sell these products a lot of the time. Like, and
definitely
they might look ripped on the picture or whatever. They might have a great physique and they might be showing this product. It doesn't actually mean they use it. They could just be doing it simply to get the check or whatever. So you've got to take it into account.
Definitely. And like I said, that's the way. The best thing to do with nutrition is to speak to a coach or someone that's been doing it for a long time and ask them what sources do they use for their nutritional, research and things like that. Like we just talked about utilizing people like James Smith, or, another good one for supplements that I utilize a lot is called examine.com.
All right.
So they basically collate all the research that's been done on every supplement out there and then tell you whether or not it's actually effective. So they've done it on, things like whey protein powder all the way through to BCAAs, so that you can understand that they've got no bias. They're not selling any products. So you can understand what supplements are working and what aren't, and obviously, make sure you're putting good stuff into the body and not just paying money for stuff that is a waste of time.
Yeah, and also it's interesting as well because you can go to like nutritionists. You can also go to like kinesiologists, which is people who basically study the body, like specifically like how it adapts. And often if you go to nutritionists, at least this is what people have told me, they will say like all the healthy foods, all the good nutrient dense food or whatever. But if your goal is to lose weight, maybe that isn't great for you. But if you go to a kinesiologist, they'll literally tell you you need to be in a calorie deficit. This is how you do it. And so yeah, even nutritionists, depending on your goal, might not even be the most reliable source. So it's just something to take into account. Whoever you listen to, even if it even us, we might be completely wrong.
Oh, of course, that's it.
So.
But that's where just, because things like Google Scholar, you can go on there and find a lot of research done in any field. So, if you have heard something, don't just take that person's word for it. Go on to things like Google Scholar and do a bit more research about it and try and find research. And again, if they are quoting something that's quite like a game changer, they should also be referencing whatever studies they've got that information from in the first place. So again, like I said, if they're saying all this stuff and they've not really referenced anything, then potentially, again, they could be not making it up, but maybe they've read something themselves without researching and then just kind of regurgitated it. So the easy thing to do, just like with anything in life, like politics and all that stuff, research it yourself.
And again, yeah, even with the studies and the journals, you got to look at them in depth as well, because if they do, say, a test on 8 people that are a certain way or a certain, certain way or whatever, it doesn't necessarily mean that it works for everyone. Obviously, 8 people is a lot. So even if it is a journal that's been accepted, you've still got to take that with a pinch of salt. You've got to take everything. So, but definitely. The one thing I would always say, if you're trying to lose weight, calorie deficit is probably a good way to go. I can pretty much say that, certainly.
Yeah, I'm in agreement there, mate. And that's when everyone I know asks me about that. That's literally what I'll direct them to start with.
Yeah. Anyway, I thought we'd move on now. Obviously, with lockdown, a lot of people are taking up running. There was a stat I read today with the Couch to 5K app. For this same period last year to this year, there's been an increase of, it was about 950% more users in, I think, the last 3 months. In the last 3 months of last year. So obviously that's brilliant. Lots of new runners. I think it was 820,000 new runners. So obviously brilliant. So I just thought we kind of end with some kind of general tips, nothing too sparkly or whatever, just for kind of new runners to get going, if you want to start.
I mean, the biggest thing for me is you need to get assessed. The problem is that running is so accessible and it's so easy to start that yes, anyone thinks they can just put a pair of trainers on and go for a run, but it's not as straightforward as that. We need to understand how the person's joints and their mobility, how all that contributes to their run gait. You think about when it comes to running, we're absorbing 2 to 3 times our own body weight, so your body needs to be prepared to handle that, and just running isn't necessarily going to cut it in the beginning. So they need to get assessed to understand if they've got the range of motion and some basic stability and strength to support them increasing mileage over time. That would be the first thing straight away. And then from there, it's just get started, Once you kind of understand what maybe your deficits are, because there's no reason why you can't run and address them at the same time, just get started. Low mileage, walk, run, just do bouts of walking with bouts of jogging, and just build up that mileage gradually over time.
When you say get assessed, do you mean like a gait analysis or like go to a specialist like yourself?
I would say, yeah, go to a specialist. But in terms of gait analysis, the problem is with that, it's only going to give you a certain picture. And unless you go to a properly qualified, like you said, sort of a kinesiologist or someone who's qualified in biomechanics, then essentially all you're getting in a gait analysis is someone's going to tell you whether you pronate or supinate. Like if you go to a shoe store and things like that, that's all you're going to get. And at this point in time, that's not a problem because there's research out there shows that pronation or supination isn't a big injury risk factor. And neither is the type of shoe you're wearing. So yeah, so I would say more on the movement side of things. So for example, can you squat without your knees caving in? Because if your knees are caving in when you squat, then that means your hip external rotators and your abductors are quite weak, which means that when it comes to running, they're also going to be weak. And obviously, it's a lot easier for me to spot that when someone's squatting than making them go out for a run. So we've identified straight away there, we need to do some strength work around the hips and the glutes and the abductors to make sure that, again, we're not overstressing their knees as they start building up that mileage. So that's what I mean by getting assessed in terms of your flexibility or mobility and, like I said, just your general stability.
Yeah, it's a lot more specific, obviously. If you can go to someone and do a squat, or whatever, and see exactly what's going on. Squat's actually something weirdly, maybe it is to do with weakness in some part of my body, but I can do it with a weight fairly well. But when I'm no weight and it's just like me standing, I can't like keep a balance unless I'm on my toes. So maybe that is, I don't know, a weakness or whatever. But
so the thing is, and again, this is exactly why we talk about getting assessed, because it's not necessarily anything in terms of a weakness. It could be that it's just what we call a motor control issue. It could be that you just need to learn the squat properly, by having someone go through the technique with you and focus on building up the progressions of the squat to get that pattern cleaned up, and then obviously sort of ingraining that pattern into the brain, because that could be all it is. It's just that you think each movement that we do is like a blueprint that the brain learns and then accesses when we start to do it again. Hence why we need to warm up and stuff, because it's almost like you're loading these blueprints into the brain ready to execute those particular movements. And obviously the squat for you could just be that your blueprint at the moment is a little bit fuzzy and blurry, and the brain doesn't fully understand what it's trying to achieve. So therefore we need to focus on getting some good quality practice in and rebuilding that movement back up and ingraining it into the brain so that you can do a squat with the feet flat on the floor without any issues and without having to overthink it. Does that make sense?
Definitely, yeah, definitely. I mean, as you know, like my experience in strength conditioning is pretty limited anyway, so that definitely wouldn't surprise me at all. But yeah, if I was just to give a couple of tips myself for any beginners, as you said, like completely agree with the slow kind of running, small mileage. Don't go out too fast. Don't go out too far. The chances are you're going to get an injury. I've made the mistake plenty of times. But yeah, just gradually build it up. Enjoy the process. You can download apps like kind of Strava or Couch to 5K to keep you motivated, keep you going. Set in little targets as well. I know it's a bit harder at the minute without races or park run, but obviously you can still see your time if you're using a watch or whatever. Just kind of helps to keep you motivated, because obviously, it's great to see all these runners signing up and all that, but whether or not they'll keep it going, we'll just have to see. But yeah, if it is a struggle for motivation, run with friends. We can do that now. Get an app, get the right footwear. Just little things here and there. And running with music as well is quite a big one for me. I really enjoy that. So yeah,
Same.
they're just some little ones for me.
Yeah, especially I listen to a lot of heavy metal, so it's kind of one of the only places where it's socially acceptable for me to listen to it very loud when I'm running. So yeah,
But we're kind of the opposite with music taste.
I've heard your techno and house dance and all that sort of stuff.
What, me?
No, what do you listen to?
I'm definitely not that. I'm just like what's ever in the charts, really, like top 100. So yeah, I just put on what's ever. Like I'll put on a random Spotify playlist and hope for the best, really. But yeah,
I think the music one's a really good one. I've always found it's helped motivate me. One of my friends told me about an app. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, which she uses on her runs to keep her motivated. And it's like you're being chased by zombies.
Yeah, you were gonna say that. Yeah. Yeah, I want to give that a go, to be fair. How does it work then? Do you like...
I think it's basically I think you can kind of almost plug in some set paces and stuff like that. And if you're kind of slowing down, like it comes in your earphones and stuff, and basically says you're about to be ravaged by a zombie or something like.
So it's like interval training, basically.
I don't think it's intervals. I think it's just kind of it tries to keep you running at maybe your goal pace for that particular session. Like if
Oh, right.
you want to run at like tempo pace or marathon pace or whatever, if you kind of start dropping below that, I think it kind of then prompts you with
Okay.
the threat of being eaten by a zombie or something like that.
Yeah,
But
yeah. I was thinking like you have to like sprint 200 meters, and then when the zombie next comes, you have to sprint again, or
I
something
mean,
like
yeah, it might have that as well. To be fair, I've not used it, so I'm not 100% on how it works. But she used to swear by it all the time. So
Yeah,
when she was training for her marathon.
Yeah, I might have to look into that. I've seen it like come up on a few ads or whatever, so definitely want to look into it. Just quickly to end with as well. Obviously, we introduced the show as Hare and Tortoise. So, would you like to explain your reasoning for that?
Well, I mean, I think it's pretty clear, especially from what we've been talking about already. Yeah, I mean, obviously Harry is the hare, he's the speed demon, and I'm the slow and steady tortoise. So yeah,
Tortoise wins the race, right?
well, not with your 5K time. But
Well,
yeah, no, I think it's just it's a reflection of the experience that we bring as well, though. Especially accessing some of the times that you've done that I've never achieved. It's a good blend of understanding what you've had to go through to get the kind of times you've been getting in terms of that speed element, and obviously for me, bringing the experience of what you have to go through and experience to kind of achieve some of the longer distances for the average person, because obviously there's lots of top ultra runners out there that will kind of be running some pretty decent paces over long distances, but for the average ultra runner, which is what I am, yeah, it's kind of again just bringing that little bit of a slow and steady experience to it as well. But yeah,
definitely.
so kind of just is taking the mick out of myself really.
No, I love the name, to be fair, but yeah. Anyway, that's probably all we've got time for today, but hopefully you've all enjoyed it, whoever's watched it. We're going to put it on YouTube, see how it is quality-wise. As it is our first one, we're just kind of experimenting a bit with audio and things like that. But yeah, leave a comment if you managed to watch it. Leave a like as well if you want, and feel free to subscribe to both our channels. Is your YouTube channel the Intrepid Athlete as well, Lee?
Yeah, so all my social is all the Intrepid Athlete.
Perfect. And obviously we'll upload this on both our channels. But yeah, hopefully you've enjoyed. And yeah, we will see you next time.
What are we talking about next week?
Oh, what do you reckon? We'll get to that. We'll get to that.
So yeah, we'll tell you guys if this one does well what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, basically, yeah. If we get a certain amount of views, we'll be fine. All right. But yeah, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.